This story begins with our yet-to-be-named main character, who wakes up in a dimly lit, quiet room with candles glowing in place of light bulbs, a stark contrast to the world he knew before. Immediately, he realizes he's been reincarnated into a fantasy world, one that's technologically behind Earth. Spotting a maiden nearby, he guesses he's been born into wealth, a major shift from his previous life as an overworked orphan. Grateful for this fresh start in a comfortable place, he takes a moment to appreciate his new surroundings, even though he's still a baby. He quickly notices that his mother, though speaking an unfamiliar language, has an ethereal beauty. This little reassurance puts him at ease about his future, even going so far as to feel relieved about potential life issues when he grows up. Really? Reincarnated, and that's his top concern. 3 years fly by, and he's finally able to look out a window and see the world beyond the walls of his home. Amazed, he marvels at the otherworldly landscape before him. But his moment of wonder is cut short when a maid catches him standing on a chair. Concerned he might fall, she gently pulls him away. Apologizing to his nanny, he reflects on the family he was born into, realizing that his father is none other than the Grand Duke of Draconia in the Kingdom of Lionheart. Talk about a level up. This reincarnation has our MC off to a winning start. By the time he turned 8, our MC received his first sword and began learning swordsmanship, determined to become a knight of the Lionheart Kingdom. Brimming with excitement, he pictured himself mastering sword chi and aura, though he couldn't help but feel that it was a bit cliché. Despite his youthful body, the older man within was eager to learn from his master, the holy knight Sir Gothic, who had been sent by the palace to train him. Their initial meeting went smoothly, and our MC dove into his training with enthusiasm. But as the days turned into years, he began to see his training through a different lens. Now, at 14, he jokingly curses Sir Gothic, calling his regimen child abuse. He's come to believe that holy knights must be monsters in human form, given how brutal the training is. As a young teen, he's already pulling boulders twice his size, with Sir Gothic urging him on to just do another lap. Besides intense strength training, he also spars with his master, though becoming a holy knight demands far more. To achieve this title, he'll have to complete quests, gain experience and honor, be chosen by the Holy Grail, and drink the holy water. And if that weren't enough, as the son of the Grand Duke, he's expected to master all the skills necessary to eventually take up his father's role. During one of their sparring sessions, our MC's mind begins to wander, and Sir Gothic doesn't let it slide. Distracted, he quickly finds himself defeated, earning a scolding from his master. Weighed down by his growing responsibilities, he half-jokingly pleads for divine intervention, wondering if a god, if one actually exists, might save him from this relentless path. Exhausted, he collapses to the ground, his limbs trembling from the spar. But the thought of a higher power remains distant since he's never really believed in one. 2 years later, our MC sets out to roam the world independently, aiming to earn the acknowledgement of the goddess. According to legend, once he accepts her quest, he'll officially become a holy knight. As he considers how to gain her favor, he stumbles upon a town under siege by a swarm of orcs. From a distance, he initially finds the idea of earning fame through heroic deeds a bit absurd. He notices warriors struggling to defend the town, with many of them already fallen, yet they pray desperately to the goddess for protection. Seeing the carnage firsthand changes his perspective. The sight of innocent people being slaughtered by orcs stirs something within him, and he immediately brands the orcs as trash. Without a second thought, he charges forward, wielding his sword against the attackers. Through this battle, he begins to grasp the gravity of his kingdom's situation. The Lionheart Kingdom has many foes, and he's only scratched the surface. At 20, our MC finally meets the goddess and, surprisingly, becomes a believer. She greets him formally as Leon Dragonia, the son of Wolfie Dragonia, the Grand Duke of Draconia. Finally, we have a name for him, Leon. The goddess informs him she has a quest to test his worthiness, and Leon eagerly accepts before even hearing the details, awestruck by her presence alone. Just so you know, the goddess name was Ariana, who gave our MC the first quest. Years of relentless effort eventually pay off, and Leon completes the quest, officially becoming a holy knight. Fueled by newfound purpose, he continues to fight enemies in the goddess's name. From orcs and goblins to dark cultists, Leon carves his path as a warrior, rising to the esteemed rank of War Knight of the Lionheart Kingdom. This position grants him the authority to lead other knights, allowing him to marshal forces against the orcs he has come to despise deeply. Through countless battles, Leon's hatred for the orc race intensifies to the point where he even feels a twisted sense of relief and satisfaction whenever he faces them in combat. This vengeance drives him to wage a relentless campaign, almost as if purging them cleanses something within him. At 35, Leon witnesses the passing of the living saint and demigod, Arjun Majesty Lionheart, who perishes in battle against an archdemon summoned by the Empire. Losing this revered figure hits hard, and Leon can't help but think how overwhelming the orc threat already was. Now, with demons involved, things are dire. As a devout follower for 15 years, Leon firmly believes that only faith in the gods can save humanity. It's a remarkable shift for someone who was once a non-believer, now embodying the classic seeing is believing mindset. Leon's frustration with the Empire's magicians, who summoned such demonic horrors, is palpable. Yet amid this turmoil, Lionheart Kingdom must choose a new holy knight to succeed the late King Lionheart. Despite the chaos, Leon's unwavering dedication and loyalty make him the clear choice, and the goddess herself, Ariana, selects him as the new symbol of honor and faith. Though he knows the weight of this role, Leon accepts the goddess's decision. The title comes with immense responsibility, not only to protect the kingdom's people, but also to lead its knights. In a solemn ceremony, he receives and safeguards the kingdom's sacred treasure, the Lionheart, and, as both the Grand Duke of Draconia and the new King of Lionheart, he pledges to defend the Holy Grail and uphold the kingdom's honor. After 80 years in this world, Leon has seen and endured countless battles. He fought in 3 major wars against the orcs, survived an incident with a strange hunchbacked goblin that transformed into an archdemon, and dealt with endless problems caused by the Empire. Now, once again, the Empire stirs up chaos, with its dark magicians experimenting recklessly. Leon, a seasoned warrior who has seen every trick in the book, doubts even his counters against dark magic will be enough here. Surveying the battlefield, Leon is reminded of the devastation the Empire has unleashed, especially since it aligned itself with a northern cult and abandoned the gods. In his eyes, this disaster is the consequence of granting rights to those unworthy. Deciding to put an end to the Empire's madness, Leon chooses conquest as the path to peace. By the time he reaches 96, his hatred for the Empire, and especially for its emperor, has reached a breaking point. When the emperor sacrifices 3 million lives in a vile ritual to summon the Lord of Chaos, Leon is appalled. He wields his holy sword, still stained from last year's brutal orc battles, and leads the holy knights into yet another clash with the Empire. At 121, Leon still fights, having given every ounce of his strength to oppose the darkness. Yet, despite his unmatched dedication and the divine powers granted by the gods, the world teeters on the edge of ruin. He has done everything he can, but it isn't enough to halt the collapse. As Leon grapples with the weight of his failures, a holy knight calls out to him. Without turning, he addresses the knight, Sir Aaron, and speaks words of honor about Aaron's father, who died valiantly. He assures Aaron that his father now joins the gods' eternal feast. With tears in his eyes, Sir Aaron believes these words, drawing strength from them. Leon prays to the goddess as he rallies his troops, urging them to fight the villains who have ravaged their lands. With a voice steady and resolute, he stirs their hearts, reminding them of those they've lost and imploring them to take up arms for vengeance and justice. He knows, however, that even as a holy knight, he cannot vanquish all evil alone. Drawing his holy sword from the air, Leon leads his people, praying for guidance. The goddess hears his pleas and reassures her devoted knight that she stands with him until the end. Strengthened by her promise, Leon charges into battle against the forces of darkness. In the bleakness of winter, he fights on, watching as barbarian slaves fall as mere shields, while knights and civilians sacrifice themselves with honor. War, he knows, is grotesque, yet it is his duty as the gods' chosen warrior. Years slip by, and by the time Leon is 217, winter still grips the land. Yet he tirelessly battles every demon that crosses his path. Eventually, at the age of 256, he closes the last demon gate. His enemies are now cornered, with nowhere left to flee. Alone, Leon remains undaunted, determined to rid the world of evil. The demons tremble, knowing that Leon will fulfill his vow to exterminate them. For Leon, this is not imprisonment, it's purpose. In a kind of half-empty, half-full resolve, he does not see himself as trapped with the monsters. They are trapped with him, and with unwavering might, he cuts down each one he meets, relentless to the end. Back on Earth, a mysterious black-ranked gate appears in the center of Seoul. Its rank is unknown due to the darkness of its aura, making it a terrifying anomaly. The Korean Hunter Association, along with the World Hunter Association, requests the largest guilds in Korea to help raid the gate, but all of them decline. Fear grips everyone. They know this gate could spell disaster. Left with no choice, the Korean government orders the Korean Hunter Association to venture into the gate first, even though it feels like a death sentence. And so, stepping through the gate, they find themselves face to face with none other than the Night King, Leon, resplendent in his full glory. Associate Manager Hun Hari snaps out of her daze when her colleague, Manager Kim Jae-soo, hands her a cup of coffee. He asks her about their surreal experience. Hari admits that no one believes them. Escaping a black-ranked gate alive, especially with rumors of a great devil inside, seems impossible. Yet here they are, thanks to one man, Leon, their powerful and enigmatic savior. Jae-soo explains that Leon isn't the first otherworld survivor. For 3 decades, tales have circulated about people who return to Earth after surviving the desolate worlds inside gates. These survivors are remarkably powerful, bringing back abilities they acquired in the realms beyond, which often had apocalyptic landscapes on the brink of total ruin. Survivors who return are usually given special treatment by governments eager to gain their allegiance. Hari insists to Jae-soo that they must recruit Leon. He was able to obliterate a high-ranking demon with a single attack, something even the most elite hunters would struggle with. Jae-soo agrees. This new survivor handled demons as if he were performing an art, embodying a raw, graceful mastery. They both know securing Leon's allegiance could change the course of the Hunter Association, and possibly all of humanity's future. Hearing that Leon is royalty from his world, Jin-soo can't help but worry about potential cultural clashes. But Hari, a bit flushed, insists that she can sense Leon is a good person. She can tell just by the sound of his voice. Just then, Leon's booming voice fills the room, loudly scolding a bald man before him and shattering a reinforced glass window in the process. This glass, designed to withstand monsters, shatters effortlessly under his powerful voice. Jin-soo raises an eyebrow, muttering Hari's words about Leon being a good person with a smirk. And Hari quickly looks away, chalking it up to cultural differences. 15 minutes earlier, Leon had been seated with a representative, still adjusting to the experience of meeting with Earthlings in such a formal setting. His memories drifted back to his previous life, when he was an orphan who worked tirelessly in his 20s, only to meet his end through sheer exhaustion. After that, he reincarnated into the world where he ruled as the Night King of Lionheart, vanquishing demons for centuries. Although he'd spent over 300 years in that other realm, he found comfort in the remnants of his past life as an orphan. Snapping back to the present, Leon notices the bald man, a bit nervous, calling him by his full name, Leon Dragonia Lionheart. Leon's thoughts race. He realizes it's best to maintain his current royal image rather than hint at his humble past as an earthling. A 300-year-old Night King sounds far more advantageous than a worn-out young man who once succumbed to overwork. He fixes the bald man with a glare, commanding him to address him as Your Majesty and to treat other lesser beings with the respect they're due. Although confused and slightly irritated, the man realizes he can't argue with a legendary survivor, so he mutters a respectful correction, scratching his head as he complies. Leon feels a bit of relief watching the bald man comply, wondering if this man is just being polite or if the government truly treats survivors with such deference. Either way, Leon decides he'll take full advantage of the situation. The man starts to discuss the recent Black Gate incident, but quickly corrects himself to call it Your Majesty's World, explaining how it linked with their hunters. He then asks if Leon really defeated all those demons. Leon nods confidently, then asks if the man has already forgotten his deeds. The question throws the man off, speechless, trying to understand Leon's meaning. Leon clarifies, boasting that he annihilated every evil creature to uphold the knight's honor, then, with a flourish, commands the man to serve as his temporary secretary. Leon even turns it into a grand spectacle, declaring that recording this event is a privilege for him. The bald man, though bewildered, can't argue and reluctantly agrees, leaving Leon secretly amused. It's clear that Leon is thoroughly enjoying himself, reveling in the spectacle he's creating. Despite being a bit bewildered, Baldy chalks up Leon's attitude to cultural differences and dutifully follows his orders, contacting someone to bring food. Meanwhile, Leon, in a roundabout way, points out the lack of royal etiquette by hinting that he's hungry. Luckily, Baldy catches on and orders a meal. While waiting, Leon takes the opportunity to ask about the world they're in, hoping to uncover what happened to Earth after he died. Baldy explains how, 30 years ago, gates appeared worldwide, unleashing monsters and demons that thrust nations into chaos. Over time, people discovered that each gate had a theme and a quest, and they learned that unattended gates could lead to dungeon breaks where monsters would invade Earth. Listening, Leon realizes that Earth's gates are vastly different from the spontaneous demon appearances he was used to in his former world. Soon, there's a knock on the door, and Baldy goes to retrieve the meal, presenting it to Leon with a tray holding a bowl of bone broth, kimchi, and rice, a dish commonly known as seolyeongtang. Seeing the food brings Leon back to memories of his life on Earth, where he often ate this as a laborer. He's torn between nostalgia and disdain, but he keeps a stoic expression, questioning Baldy about the meal. Baldy innocently answers that it's soul food for peasants. At this, Leon's demeanor changes dramatically. He explodes in outrage, condemning Baldy for defiling the prestigious Lionheart name with a peasant's meal. He questions whether this is how royalty from another realm should be treated, declaring himself as Leon Dragonia Lionheart, a royal agent of the gods, the guardian of the Holy Grail, and the wielder of both the Holy Sword and Spear. Baldy tries to explain, but Leon cuts him off, furiously commanding him to leave, dismissing him as an inferior peasant. It's over the top, sure, but for Leon, acting the part of royalty is non-negotiable. Leon sees his status as far surpassing that of an ordinary earthling, He takes immense pride in being recognized as the arch-nemesis of demons, the embodiment of a relentless 300-year war against the forces of evil. Yet despite his prestigious standing, he perceives the state of the world around him as a chaotic mess. To Leon, the root of this disorder lies in the people's lack of proper religious faith. This realization only fuels his anger, convincing him that it's his duty to enlighten these peasants. He understands that despite his noble lineage, his role as the Night King, an agent of the gods, comes with immense responsibility. His time in the other world and the hardships he faced as an earthling add depth to his resolve. He may have started as a lowly laborer, but now he stands as a powerful symbol of hope and strength. As Leon cuts into the steak, he savors a piece of the meat, taking a moment to appreciate the quality of his meal. The red wine from 1993 is a notable upgrade from the typical fare he expected. Jin-soo observes curiously how the chicken and black bean noodles are recognized, while Hari, relieved to see Leon eating, focuses on the positive change in his meal. Feeling daunted by the situation, Jin-soo encourages Hari to speak to Leon first, believing that her previous bravery might make a good impression on him. Hari, nervous about using formal language, hesitates but eventually approaches the king. She enters the room, apologizing for interrupting his meal. Leon recognizes her as the swordsman he met earlier and invites her to sit down. Hari beams with happiness, giving a thumbs up behind her back, which the monitoring viewers find both amusing and nerve-wracking. As they engage in conversation, Leon compliments the chef and expresses that his irritation earlier wasn't about the food itself, but rather about how he should be treated as royalty from a foreign land. Hari quickly apologizes for any disrespect, and Leon brushes off her concerns, asking her name. Their conversation turns serious as Hari informs him about the demons that have appeared in their world. She seeks Leon's permission for him to be under the care of the South Korean government, aiming to integrate him into the Hunter Association. Understanding the strategic implications, Leon sees that the aim is to secure him as an asset in the ongoing intelligence war of the 21st century. He asserts his duty as a knight and that it is honorable for him to fight. However, when Hari expresses hope that he will join the Hunter Association, Leon clarifies that as a king, he cannot serve as a soldier for another nation. Instead, he announces his intention to create a new knight order in this world. Hari takes a moment to process his declaration, realizing that she can't reject his decision, and simply nods in agreement. This moment marks the beginning of a new chapter, not just for Leon, but for the future of the South Korean Hunter Association. "You're going to have a tough time ahead of you," Assistant Manager Hari remarks, sensing the tension in the air. She inquires about their higher-ups' reactions to the situation, while Jin-soo reassures her that they'll provide support. What's crucial, he emphasizes, is that His Majesty hasn't aligned himself with any other country or joined a guild, which could complicate things. Feeling the weight of the circumstances, Hari slumps in frustration, realizing that the South Korean government and the Hunter Association must cater to Leon's decisions. She vents her anger over the ineptitude of the major guilds, which led to this predicament. At this, Jin-soo mentions the Phoenix Guild, but abruptly stops when a loud alarm blares through the office. Checking his phone, Jin-soo finds an urgent message warning of a dungeon break in the Hanan Plains area, which he knows is a vital granary. Panic sets in as he realizes that food production will come to a halt if the demonic elements spread. Hari, perplexed by the issue, recalls that S-ranker Lee Yongwan from the Phoenix Guild should be able to handle an orange-colored gate easily. Jin-soo's irritation grows at the mention of the guild, and he curses them, suspecting they have ulterior motives. Leon, overhearing their conversation from within the room, deduces that they're in serious trouble. If the grounds become infected, the crops will be ruined. Using his divine power, Leon checks the situation and confirms that there's no immediate danger in the area. He then calls for Demra, sensing her presence. In a bright place with a majestic castle, a woman in a green hood turns and smiles. Demra has heard Leon's call. Meanwhile, chaos unfolds as someone yells for Hunter Li Yongwan, demanding answers about the dungeon break. The smug-looking Li Yongwan reveals himself, claiming to be the S-rank guild master of the Phoenix Guild. He greets Section Chief Kim and addresses Hari as Rookie, eliciting a glare from Jin Su, who knows that Li Yongwan allowed the dungeon break to happen since the association didn't accept the guild's previous requests. Li Yongwan smirks, explaining that the Phoenix Guild has requested a tax exemption for the profits earned from the gates. They've been profiting from the byproducts and magic crystals collected from the monsters. Their aim is to avoid paying the hefty 1 trillion tax, and Jin Su is infuriated, noting that the large guild already enjoys plenty of benefits. Hari, realizing the urgency, yells about the need to close the gate, stressing that it's been a week since the break occurred, and delaying action will only worsen the situation. Li Yongwan, still grinning, claims he knows the stakes but adds that the authority over the auction gate will be passed to someone else. However, he insists he can't do anything since his members are injured and unable to raid. Yet, Jin Su and the others can see through the ruse. The guild members are not as incapacitated as Li Yongwan suggests, their smug expressions revealing their true condition. It's clear that tensions are rising, and that decisive action is required to address the looming threat before it's too late. Li Yongwan claims he'll try to deal with the dungeon break tomorrow, but offers no guarantee of success. This response infuriates Hari, who questions his lack of patriotism and compassion, especially since he knows the disaster that will strike H-Plains if it gets infected. With a crazy grin, Yongwan brushes it off, pretending ignorance. He even goes on to lecture, saying that justice is just money and power in their world, a sentiment Hari is disgusted by. Suddenly, Leon himself steps forward, catching Hari off guard. Hari is surprised but relieved to see him there, though she's taken aback when he reminds her sternly not to speak his name so casually. Instead, she should address him with respect for his title. Unfazed by the tension, Yongwan mocks Leon's appearance, questioning who he is and calling him a Westerner. Leon doesn't waste words, commanding him to be silent. The mere suggestion that someone like Yongwan, a lowly figure in Leon's eyes, would speak to him so disrespectfully irritates the king. But Yongwan isn't one to back down easily. As one of the top 20 S-rankers in the world and the Phoenix Guild Master, he is incensed to be looked down upon and unleashes a flicker of fire from his hand, demanding to know if Leon wishes to die. Hari quickly intervenes, warning Yongwan that Leon is a survivor. Instantly, Yongwan's attitude changes. He bows, apologizing for his rudeness, and introduces himself properly, now showing deference to Leon. Yet Leon barely acknowledges him, saying that a king doesn't repeat himself, dismissing Yongwan without another word. Turning to Jin Su, Leon asks about the issue and the gate's details, insisting they keep it brief. Jin Su and Hari are visibly relieved, now hopeful that His Majesty's intervention will help with the critical situation. Hari explains that the dungeon break has unleashed a powerful demonic element that is polluting H-Plains, making it impossible for crops to grow and creating a dire food crisis. Leon paces thoughtfully before asking the group what they believe is the solution. Hari responds, explaining that the only way to fix the situation is by purifying the infected land, clearing the dungeon, and eliminating the source of contamination. Leon halts, digesting her words, and acknowledges that he now understands the core issue, the contaminated land and the ever-growing dungeon gate. With that, he orders them to gather their forces. He then declares that after the Phoenix Guild's raid limit ends tomorrow, he himself, the king, will take over. Hari breathes a sigh of relief, now assured they'll have the assistance of a survivor. But Leon adds another condition. As a foreign king, he can't act freely in another nation's territory. he requests official permission from the country's leader. Hari is baffled, insisting that it should be fine, but Leon, ever the stickler for rules, insists on legitimate protocol. He points out that if she considers herself a knight, she should uphold the laws, urging them to seek the local king's consent. Observing this, Li Yongwan scoffs, realizing that Leon may be even more rigid than himself. Left with no other choice, the association contacts the South Korean president, who grants permission. Later that evening, with all preparations in place, Hari returns to inform Leon. She asks about the significance of the straw doll she's holding, recalling his unusual request for two specific things: the straw doll itself and that it must be crafted by a mother. Leon inspects a shelter filled with women making straw dolls, some with their spouses by their side. He scrutinizes each doll in what has essentially become a straw doll competition. Many are quickly dismissed. One doll is blasted apart with his power, and another, resembling a chicken, meets the same fate. Hari's own creation doesn't escape critique, though Leon doesn't clarify if she crafted it for personal reasons or as part of the assignment. Finally, the 89th doll, crafted by an elderly woman, catches Leon's eye. He asks the woman how many children she has borne, and she proudly answers, 12. Impressed, Leon respectfully kisses her hand and expresses his gratitude, making her chuckle. With the doll chosen, he places it on a small makeshift altar with a candle, announcing that the conditions have been met. He then takes the Holy Grail from his inventory, calling upon the Mother of the Abundant Land. Leon recites an incantation, offering the doll as a symbol of the people of Earth's harvest. In response, a bright light emits from the Holy Grail, filling it with water that begins to overflow and rise into the air. As dawn breaks, the red-tinted clouds reflect the significance of the ritual. The water droplets float and soak into the doll, which springs to life and speaks, calling Leonhardt her child. In a gesture of reverence, Leonhardt bows before the doll, greeting Mother Earth herself, Demra, the goddess of life and fertility. On this extraordinary day, divinity graces the earth as Demra, in her doll form, announces the presence of an evil force contaminating the land. Leonhardt, resolute yet humble, confirms this grim reality and apologizes to Demra, warning that her pure eyes may encounter the vile ways of those who defile the land. This makes Yang Wan gape, for Leonhardt's words pierce with direct disdain. However, Demra gently reminds him that ignorance and greed are inherent human flaws, not sins. Looking up at Leonhardt, she asks about his plans. He pauses thoughtfully, closing his eyes, then speaks with conviction. While blending among swordsmen is simple, true authority belongs to the conqueror. Leonhardt promises Demra that he will bring balance, teaching this world the harmony of duty and authority until a new pantheon emerges. When Demra asks what he seeks from her, Leonhardt respectfully requests her aid in purifying the lands, even though he suspects she may be reluctant. To his surprise, Demra reminds him that he is her temple's head and her champion. Extending the doll's hand, water begins to drip from it, symbolizing her boundless generosity. Declaring that though this earth is not originally hers, she will still spread her divinity here, substituting Earth's essence with her own flesh. She shows compassion even to those who may not be worthy. With the water from Demra's hand dripping to the earth, her powerful intention reverberates. Every being that walks on that land will become an ally of their champion, Leonhardt. As a single drop splashes to the ground, it radiates a blinding light over the plains, and the once dull plants transform into vibrant golden crops, sparking awe and reverence from the onlookers. Leonhardt commands them to observe, chastising them for their ignorance and declaring that this world is now blessed with divinity. Every plant glows with a golden hue, signaling that prosperity is now their rightful path. As the crowd stands in stunned admiration, Leonhardt reminds them that giving life and prosperity is the duty of the living. Yet Yang Wan, determined not to lose his influence, protests, accusing Leonhardt of deceit. He mocks the miracle, arguing that crops born of magic are toxic, a notion ingrained in common belief. But Leonhardt silences him, his gaze unwavering. To judge these blessed crops as poison, he warns, is blasphemy. His intense glare makes Yang Wan falter, though he still presses on, plotting to frame Leonhardt as a fraud. Yang Wan demands proof, claiming it's for the people's safety, and brings forth an appraiser to evaluate the crops. The appraiser, expecting deception, is shocked as he reads the true nature of the harvest. A system window appears, revealing that the crops are classified as blessed rice with a rare rank. Even more astonishing, repeated consumption of these crops can cure Tier 3 diseases, including cancer. The appraiser, overwhelmed by the revelation, announces it aloud, leaving no room for doubt about the divinity that now graces their land. Hari asks if the appraiser is telling the truth, and he confirms it sincerely. Jin Su ponders the potential and orders someone to bring a pot from the chief's house. Soon, they cook a batch of rice in the middle of the field. Jin Su is struck as he tastes the rice, and a notification appears, stating he's gained a stamina and mana recovery boost for 8 hours. Realizing the rice's effect, he marvels at how it acts like a reinforcer, a high-value item usually costing 3 million won per bottle. As Jin Su eats, Hari runs over and calls him by his title. He reminds her to chew before speaking, making her comply. She mentions curiously eating a bug, making Jin Su pale at the thought. Surprising everyone, she reveals that even eating a bug granted her a buff. Jin Su realizes the blessing likely extends to all creatures in the field. Seeing this as an incredible advantage, he instructs his men to gather every bug they can find to enter the gate with full buffs, significantly boosting the morale of the Hunters Association's raiding team. Demra then speaks to Leonhardt, calling him her champion and informing him she's completed her task in this world and is returning. Leonhardt bows deeply, sincerely thanking the goddess and vowing never to forget her divine love. As if reaching out to him one last time, Demra gently reminds him to take care of himself, then returns, leaving the straw doll lifeless. To those watching, Demra feels like a motherly figure to their king. Hari approaches Leonhardt, asking about what just happened. Leon explains that it was divine power at work. He then inquires if there is a god in their world. Hari admits that she doesn't know. Leon goes on to explain how proper life and worlds are created through divine power and urges the Earthlings to keep this in mind. He then announces that they should head into the gate now that their soldiers are prepared. Meanwhile, a member of the Phoenix Guild approaches Yang Wan and questions if it's really okay, worried it might ruin their plans. Yang Wan curses the survivor, furious that this unexpected presence has destroyed their goal to get the government to listen to their guild's request. He wishes that the survivor would die inside the dungeon, muttering to himself that the survivor deserves punishment. Suddenly, an idea strikes him, and he lets out an evil laugh, thinking that this situation could still work in their favor. His guild member notices the shift in his demeanor and asks if everything is all right. Yang Wan assures him not to worry, reminding him that the gate was somewhat raided. The guild member recalls how difficult the raid was and starts to realize what Yang Wan is planning. He remembers that only Hari is the A-ranker on the raid team. Yang Wan grins, voicing his suspicion that the survivor might be a blessing-type buffer. He believes that means the survivor won't be of any use in a fight, and with that, he's sure that the raid team from the association will fail. Inside the gate, a menacing monster sits atop a horse, clutching its own head, surrounded by undead soldiers. Defeating such a formidable foe will not be easy. The rider, holding his head, exudes an ominous presence, and the situation looks dire. A system notification suddenly announces a warning. The dungeon break has begun. The countdown to end the lives of those within the gate starts ticking down, signaling the impending doom for anyone still trapped inside. The South Korean Hunters Association's raid team, along with their king, cautiously enters the gate, alert to any monsters that might appear. Leonhardt summarizes his understanding of the dungeon, noting that it will close once they either complete the quests set by the dungeon or defeat its boss. The idea of beating the boss piques his interest. Hari, however, is reluctant to admit how typical this fight would be, pointing out that usually the weak gang up to take down stronger enemies. Cher assures Leonhardt that they'll manage. Leonhardt, noticing a group of skeletons, recalls that the previous team had tried to clear this dungeon. He comments on the unexpectedly high number of monsters, to which Hari explains that this is typical for that particular dungeon. She elaborates that while most dungeons see a reduction in monsters after being defeated, in this case, skeletons, zombies, and demons will continue to spawn until the boss is defeated. Leonhardt confirms his understanding that this dungeon, indeed, is one of those where defeating the boss is key. Hari suggests that the boss is most likely a necromancer capable of controlling skeletons. Before she can elaborate further, a system notification interrupts, revealing the dungeon break's start and confirming that the goal is to defeat Dullahan, the commander, within 3 hours. The news of the countdown immediately heightens the tension, and the raid team halts in their tracks. Jin-soo curses at Yan-wan for withholding critical information about the dungeon, particularly about Dullahan, who now appears with an army of skeleton soldiers. The sheer number of enemies overwhelms the raid team, and one of the members asks Jin-soo if they should distribute the potions. Jin-soo, focused, instructs them to prioritize giving potions to the upper-rank hunters. With the team getting into position, Jin-soo asks Mashik, a member of their team, to determine the number of archers and mages among the enemy. Using his skill, Mashik reports that there are 30 archers and 2 mages. Jin-soo quickly organizes their strategy. Anyone with sniping skills is to target the long-range enemies, while those with shields are tasked with blocking the advancing monsters. He wishes everyone good luck, and the battle between the two sides begins. Jin-soo defends as one skeleton strikes. He can feel the attack's impact, determining that the enemy is stronger than expected. Jin-soo thinks this is why an orange rank gate differs from those lower ranks, but he must still fight. He charges his shield onto the skeleton and uses his hammer to smash it. He may only be a B-rank tank, but he can still handle this much. He's like C with both his vibranium shield and Mjolnir in hand. Too bad his hammer's handle is too long. A flash of light catches his attention, and he sees 2 skeleton mages casting advanced spells intending to distract them. Jin-soo yells loudly to catch their attention. He successfully attracts the skeleton mage, and he becomes the target of their casting. A magic missile blasts where Jin-soo is, surprising his men. He assures them he is fine, reminding them how expensive his gear is. Jin-soo suddenly comes face to face with Dullahan. The Commander Knight strikes at him. Jin-soo tries to defend with his shield, but the impact is too much and Hef flees off. Jin-soo groans and coughs, managing to survive the attack. Hari shouts for him in worry, while another member says they must save him. The other member asks the assistant manager if the reserve forces should make their move and help. Hari clenches her teeth as she thinks hard about it. She believes the reserve forces are meant precisely for this and intends to help. Other hunters are faltering at the fast chain attack of Dullahan's great sword. Hari looks at His Majesty, thinking about how this man defeated a great demon on his own. She calls for his attention and asks for help. Leon only looks at her blankly and announces that a king never joins a small battle. It is a small battle compared to the wars he fought before. His Majesty's statement confuses Hari, but Leon only tells her to look for ways to build her honor. Leon frowns at her for even thinking he'd help take care of Bones. He then lectures her on how rude this is to the goddess, saying he can't watch this kind of thing anymore. Hari is shocked by what His Majesty said. The member of the reserve forces asks her what they should do now, knowing she can't waste time. Hari makes her decision, seeing that this person has no plan to help them. After all, she observes how His Majesty only seems to be interested in Dullahan. Leon mutters to himself, thinking about how the undead can move like they do now. Hari decides to take care of Dullahan first and announces her intention. She instructs the others to support Section Chief Kim and the others. Hari dashes towards the enemies and uses the skeletons to jump to where Dullahan is. She doesn't hesitate to strike at Dullahan, creating an impact. Hari is surprised that her sudden attack was blocked by Dullahan's great sword Disdain. She still plans to use this situation to separate Dullahan from the other mobs, but she is suddenly faced with Dullahan's head. The move surprises her, and Hari realizes that the boss threw its head to block her view. As the enemy clenches its fist, she wonders what kind of undead fights intuitively like this. Hari tries to defend with her sword as Dullahan throws a punch at her. Like Jin Su, she flies off and hits the rocks. Oof, that must have hurt. She manages to survive the attack and coughs, though relieved. She is once again faced by Dullahan. The good thing is, she accomplished her aim to separate it from the others. She prepares to attack and apologizes for her skill range being too large. She unleashes the attack, creating a big explosion where she and Dullahan, or the dungeon boss, grunts at the explosion. It screams and swings its great sword around as if gaining enlightenment. Hari prepares another attack that aims to finish Dullahan. She dashes in to strike, but she's once again blocked. The enemy purposely uses the blunt of his sword to stop her attack, even leaving a red-hot mark on its sword. Hari notices the stance of the enemy, knowing what comes next. She clenches her teeth, expecting the incoming attack. Out of nowhere, a clapping sound can be heard in the dungeon, and a loud voice expresses its admiration. The owner of the clapping hands compliments the great sword display using one hand, saying that he must have been a nobleman at some point. It was, of course, none other than our eccentric King Leon. He apologizes for mistaking this great knight for a lowly undead. Leon shouts at the unknown knight and introduces himself as the King of Lionheart. Weird as ever, he even gives Dullahan the right to challenge him in a duel. Hari is confused about what is happening. What His Majesty did was able to stop the unfortunate end of Hari. Leon walks to where they are and says there's no need to have more of their troops injured. With all elegance, he announces that they should end all this fighting with a noble duel between them as men. Hari, Jin Su, the others, and even the undead stop in their tracks upon hearing this. The humans were, of course, thinking that what His Majesty was proposing was something preposterous. But Dullahan pauses as if thinking over this proposition. He lifts his head and uses his hand to make it clear, not in acceptance. Wait, what, that actually worked? Heeding Dullahan's decision, the skeleton soldiers back away, making space for the duel. Leon compliments Dullahan for being a knight with honor and tells the enemy boss to let go of his head as he takes his own sword from subspace. Leon says he knows the enemy uses two-hand swordsmanship, adding that it wouldn't be a proper duel if he fought with only one hand. It's no wonder Leon can tell, as he's also a knight. Dullahan considers this while Hari approaches His Majesty, telling him that Dullahan won't die unless he is beheaded. Leon asks if this matters, with a smug expression that says it doesn't. Hari, unable to argue, wonders how His Majesty intends to win without beheading Dullahan. Dullahan makes up his mind, handing his head to one of his skeleton minions. The other raid team members remain wary of the skeletons while Leon stands before Dullahan to officially start the duel. Leon introduces himself as the first knight of the Goddess of Light and Justice, Tonya's Archduke, and Lionheart's lion-hearted king. Unable to speak, Dullahan gets into position as Leon authorizes the honorable knight and their duel. The duel begins, and Dullahan makes the first move, while Leon simply stands with one hand on his sword. Dullahan raises his great sword to attack, swinging with all his might. But Leon remains composed, parrying the attack with a single move, causing Dullahan's sword to fall to the ground with a loud thud. Surprised, Dullahan jumps back, understanding what Leon meant when he pointed his sword at him. Hari, watching, is amazed as she realizes His Majesty changed the weight balance with the blade's touch. followed by a crosscut, a risky move that only someone with his skill would attempt. Dullahan rises and hands his head to his skeleton minion. He sees this as a duel decided by honor, and the other raid members, including Jin-Soo, are astounded by the technique. As the duel continues, Dullahan understands that Leon embodies the pinnacle of knightly honor. Despite knowing it could be a trick to escape, Dullahan senses Leon's sincerity. Overwhelmed with respect, Dullahan engages in the duel, striving to match Leon's skill and honor. Through their exchanges, Dullahan begins to remember his past as an honorable knight, a time he had long forgotten. Leon encourages Dullahan to reclaim his dignity, and in each move, Dullahan finds himself regaining his memories of glorious battles and noble deeds. Finally, Dullahan kneels, offering his head as a sign of surrender, as he knows he has found the honorable end he sought. Leon smiles, touching Dullahan's head with reverence and blessing, praying for him to find peace. As Leon commands it, a great light envelops Dullahan, his armor and helm disintegrating. Dullahan's true face is revealed, filled with peace as he meets his honorable end before finally perishing. With fervor, Dullahan hopes that Lionheart will carry on his legacy, leaving him to rest in peace. After clearing the dungeon, the raiding team starts handling any leftover tasks. Hari comments on how His Majesty kept his promise, while Jin-Soo agrees, noting that His Majesty indeed ended it with dignity. It was a refreshing fight compared to the usual all-out brawls seen in dungeon fantasy manhwa. Hari recalls how His Majesty summoned the light, and Jin-Soo speculates that this must be the divine power His Majesty mentioned earlier, the likely reason all the undead disappeared. Hari sighs, thinking His Majesty could have just used it from the start. Hearing this, Leon explains that if he had done so, Dullahan, the honorable knight, would not have had the chance to die with dignity. Leon shares how a knight lives for honor, which is born from one's actions and will. Through the duel, Dullahan was able to meet his end as an honorable knight. Satisfied with how it all turned out, Leon then declares he'll be taking his loot, surprising Hari and Jin-Soo. He simply adds, "After all, a battle means there's loot to be claimed, finders, keepers." Leon inspects the loot with Hari and Jin-Soo. The two are clearly amazed by the mana emanating from one of the items: Dullahan's greatsword, his cape, and an orb that pulses with a dark, ominous glow, which makes Leon frown. Jin-Soo remarks that the orb could sell for a significant amount of money, but his face turns pale when His Majesty suddenly destroys it. Everyone is shocked by the destruction of such a rare item, but Leon calmly explains that it was an object capable of spreading chaos. Ultimately, the loot consists of Dullahan's cape, his greatsword, mana stones, and a few other treasures. And with that, the Honan Gate is officially cleared. Hari sighs as she pushes a food cart, her tired appearance amplified by the dark surds under her eyes. It's been 4 days since Leon's return to Earth, and although it's a short time, much has already unfolded. Flashbacks reveal the source of Hari's exhaustion. The first issue was taxes. Leon was appalled when he learned that another nation was expecting taxes from a king of another land. Hari explained that he could settle it with mana stones, but Leon dismissed her suggestion, declaring that managing taxes wasn't his job, another glimpse into our king's unique perspective. Next came the matter of followers. After introducing divine power to the land, the elders asked how much they should tithe. Leon replied that they should pay 19 trillion won, or 90% of their yield. The elder, visibly shaken, explained that the cost of living and existing taxes were already overwhelming, and giving up 90% was unthinkable. Leon, however, called them fellow followers of the goddess and assured them they wouldn't need to worry about hunger. He declared that his guild would cover welfare, living costs, and food. Hari explained that their blessed rice had an incredibly high market value, showing the elders that each kilogram was worth 150 million won. Astonished, the elders realized that even giving up 90% would leave them well off. Leon grinned as he heard the elders declare their faith in him, knowing they'd be provided for as followers of their king and the goddess. The next matter was Leon's residence. He complained about the lack of artwork, demanding that servants be on standby, along with a luxurious bed and some art to admire. Hari had to scramble in the middle of the night to arrange a suite room from a 5-star hotel, wearing herself out in the process. She even had to beg Leon to compromise with a painting or ceramic piece. Serving the Night King certainly had its challenges. Back in the present, Hari announces herself as she enters his quarters. She asks if he's doing well, and Leon, lounging comfortably, assures her he is. Hari then pushes in his breakfast cart. Leon politely asks if she's eaten, making her admit that she hasn't had the chance. He advises her to eat when she can and to avoid skipping meals, leaving her both surprised and amused since he's the reason she's been so exhausted. As she sets the table, she admires the food, planning to grab a sandwich later. She's stunned, though, when Leon suddenly instructs her to sit down, making her wonder if he's actually inviting her to share his meal. Her eyes fill with tears, touched by what she assumes is his generosity. But just as she sits with a hopeful smile, Leon asks her what she's doing. Hari stares back, confused, until he clarifies that she's supposed to make sure the ribs are easy for him to eat. Embarrassed, Hari explains she thought he'd meant to share the meal, aiming a cold glare from Leon. "In which country do they allow kings and peasants to dine together?" he asks. With no real answer, she can only manage an awkward smile, acknowledging to herself that his words had been truly misleading. Outside, a black car drives by, and someone inside remarks that the Hunter Association has approved support funding and resettlement aid for Leon. While they can't offer a palace, they assure his comfort. Leon appreciates the gesture and leaves the matter to Hari, reminding her he's only a guest. Hari is about to discuss the loot distribution, but Leon cuts her off, telling her he's left it in her hands. He only wants Dullahan's cape for himself, and Hari agrees, realizing she's truly taken on the role of Leon's secretary. They reach their destination, close to the Hunter Association, complete with a helipad. Hari asks if Leon is satisfied, but he only responds with a non-committal sound. As they enter, a man greets Hari, addressing her formally, surprising her since Leon's stay was supposed to be a secret. The man introduces himself as Park Jong-chan, director of Dujung's Food of the Future, and one of the top conglomerates in South Korea. Jong-chan extends a hand to Leon, addressing him as Survivor. This confirms Hari's suspicion that he already knew about Leon. Jong-chan then greets Leon by his full title, but Leon simply looks at the offered hand and dismissively refers to him as a mere merchant. To that, Mr. Park was not very happy. In the next scene, Hari explains that the residence provided for Leon is covered for a year, with the association handling utilities and rent. Relieved by how Leon ignored Jong-chan earlier, Hari explains to him that survivor information is strictly confidential. She's pleased with how Leon brushed off Jong-chan and curiously asks if he knows why the man visited. Leon replies, "A merchant wants only one thing, profit." Reflecting on his words, Hari realizes Leon is referring to the blessed rice from Honan Plains. Due to the urgent situation, some information management lapses occurred, allowing a streamer to capture and share footage of the event. Hari finds that the video was reposted by a streamer named Farmer Mr. Park, and she realizes there will likely be more people trying to contact Leon for the valuable blessed rice. Meanwhile, another man watches the same video, cursing at the arrogance directed at him. Annoyed, he turns to a staff member and demands to know if the rumored effects of the blessed rice are true. The bespectacled man confirms this while bowing, but Zhongchan, skeptical, dismisses it, arguing that the rice hasn't even been tested on humans and questioning its guaranteed effectiveness. The staff clarifies that they've observed miraculous recoveries in animals, like a dying dog regaining health and people in the village experiencing relief from chronic conditions after consuming the rice. With both minor and major ailments reportedly cured, the staff asserts the rice's effectiveness, even without formal human testing. Hearing this, Zhongchan grins with renewed interest. However, the thought of Leon's dismissive merchant label stings his pride. Even as a director of a top conglomerate, being looked down upon by Leon infuriates him. Zhongchari's secretary insists they must secure Theris. Zhongchan agrees, realizing he'll have to confront Leon again. Grumbling over being disrespected by the savage survivor, he begins plotting. With a sinister smirk, Zhongchan muses that all survivors seem to believe their own world is superior. He vows to give Leon a culture shock, smugly thinking he can overpower him with the influence and sophistication of his own world. Ha! In your dreams, merchant. Leon reflects on his 3 core goals since returning to Earth. His first goal is to spread faith in divinity. Despite gods and followers existing in this world, no divine power manifests. From Leon's experience, for true divine power to flourish, a god must embrace their faith and bless the world. However, this world lacks that embrace, so Leon aims to create a new faith and gather followers to support it. Leon's second goal is to establish the Knights Templar. Here on Earth, no group wields divine power. But with Leon's reputation as the guardian of the Holy Grail, he hopes to form a new order of warrior saints. These knights would wield divine power to vanquish evil, marking a revival of the Holy Order. His final goal is to eradicate evil entirely. To accomplish this, he must first restore divine power and form the Knights Templar. Though he knows this world might fall short of his ideals, Leon is resolute in his duties. As Leon ponders these goals, Hari interrupts, informing him that someone has requested an official meeting. Leon decides to entertain the request, as they've followed proper procedures. When Zhongchan arrives with his men and a large metal case, he thanks Leon for agreeing to meet, though Leon only gives him a dismissive look. Zhongchan suppresses his irritation, eager to present a small gift. His men place the case before Leon, and Zhongchan expects the savage survivor to be impressed by its contents. Zhongchan imagines Leon's astonishment, hoping to leverage this moment to secure a managerial role over him. When Leon accepts the gift nonchalantly, Zhongchan, surprised, interprets it as a personal victory, his anger simmering beneath a forced smile. Attempting to direct the encounter, Zhongchan suggests Leon should take a look. Leon, finding this tedious, commands Hari to open the case. Hari complies, and as the case opens, she's shocked by the contents, unique rank weapons crafted by the Duan Group's master craftsmen. Zhongchan smugly introduces the weapons, hoping they will aid Leon as a hunter. Hari, taken aback, recognizes these weapons as items of immense value that can't be bought with money, well aware of their status from her time as a student watching YouTube. However, Leon simply frowns, questioning why he would use low-rank weapons. Zhongchan and Hari are visibly shocked by this statement. Leon patiently explains that true weapons are forged with divine qualities like the star's aura or holy blessings. Zhongchan, confused by Leon's disdain, wonders aloud if weapons must be preyed upon. Leon calls him out for being unfaithful, but when Zhongchan quickly claims it's a misunderstanding, Leon dismisses it, labeling it typical behavior of merchants flaunting their wares. Leon then bluntly comments that these weapons are only fit for slaughtering farm animals, but agrees to test them out regardless. He then pulls out his holy sword from subspace, mesmerizing everyone with its appearance. Zhongchan notices the sword's worn look and feels insulted, mistaking it for an ancient weapon. Seeing an opportunity to prove himself, Chan offers Hari the chance to wield one of the weapons. With Leon's nod of approval, Hari selects the Dawn, a masterpiece crafted by Park Jinchi that she has admired for years. Holding the weapon, she marvels at its power, asking Leon if she may use it. Leon replies she doesn't need permission to swing a toy, which infuriates Chan. Hari gathers her fire energy into the Dawn and strikes at Leon's sword with all her might. The powerful weapon shatters upon impact, leaving Hari and everyone in the room stunned, while Leon's holy sword remains completely unharmed. With the Dawn broken, Leon tosses his own sword into the air, smoothly storing it back into his subspace, declaring that the meeting has been a waste of time. As Chan is still reeling in shock, Leon gives him a mere 3 minutes to wrap up the meeting. Chan, struggling to regain his composure, realizes his previous miscalculations, shaken by the sheer strength Leon has just demonstrated. As a businessman, Chan steadies himself and confidently announces his desire to acquire the patent rights for Leon's miraculous rice. Leon watches with a detached, almost bored expression. Chan, eager to finalize his pitch, quickly explains that they're willing to pay handsomely, claiming their calculations have led them to an offer of 180 billion won. He knows the rice's true worth, given its incredible healing properties, even rumored to cure cancer. However, he grossly underestimates Leon's understanding of its value. Leon, unfazed, asks if Chan actually thinks he can buy the rice with mere money. Misinterpreting Leon's question as hesitation, Chan nods enthusiastically, assuming he's close to victory despite the earlier loss of the Dawn sword. He starts mentioning contract terms, monopolies, and exclusivity rights, pushing forward without noticing Leon's mounting irritation. Offering to slightly increase the price, Chan gets so carried away that he fails to realize his own misjudgment. Before he can finish, Leon cuts him off, calling him an imbecile. The title stings, but before Chan can react, Leon's anger becomes clear. To Leon, the businessman's audacity in attempting to buy something tied to divinity is a grave insult. His once calm demeanor shifts to one of open contempt. "If I were you, I'd run for my life, Mr. Merchant,"